Hello and welcome back to Quarterlight. Today we're going to look at the Vanden Plas 1500. I think the first thing we should talk about is Vanden Plas and what it is. Well, Vanden Plas was a coach builder and they did bodies for specialised vehicles and high-end auto manufacturers. But later on, the word Vanden Plas just became sort of a top end or luxury end of your model range, the leather-seated versions, etc. The Vanden Plas 1500 was, I guess, somewhere in between. It was basically an Austin Allegro. Perhaps we shouldn't be too loud in saying that. They tried to hide that it was an Allegro very poorly, I must admit, but nowhere did you ever see the word Austin or Allegro in the brochure or on the car itself. Of course, the Austin Allegro was first seen in 1973 and the Vanden Plas versions went from 74 to 79. So how did this come about? Well, these Vanden Plas just went down the same production line as all the other Allegros in Longbridge in Birmingham. And then rather than being shipped off to the dealerships around the country, these ones got sent off to the Vanden Plas factory in Kingsbury, North London for the Vanden Plas treatment. Yes, you got beautiful leather seats, we got a walnut dash, wall-to-wall carpets, and the back seats passengers even got walnut picnic tables. Yes, almost like a small Rolls Royce in a way. The most noticeable change for anyone walking past your new vehicle was the change in the bonnet that adapted to feature that big chrome grille, as we can see in this March 1976 brochure. So I think what we should do is kind of like look at this brochure and see what we can see, all those lovely little luxury vehicles, features I should say, and also some interesting marketing terminology in this brochure. And here we go, back to that front cover for another quick look. And like I say, that large in-your-face chrome grille is the most noticeable feature of the Vanden Plas 1500. And in this front view, I don't think it looks too bad. It almost suits the car in this sort of front end shot. But if we look at the next page, it doesn't work quite as well, I don't think. Here we go, turn the page, have that side view. Suddenly that grille doesn't look quite as good. It really doesn't match the lines of the Allegro, and the Allegro was already a bit of a how shall I put it, a little bit uneasy on its design. It was a little bit of an ugly duckling to start with. This grille doesn't help. The styling certainly looks even more mixed up than it did before. And that's not to say I don't like this Vanden Plas 1500. I love quirky cars, and that this car certainly fits right at home in that sort of category. But you had to pay to look a little bit different. A normal Allegro was maybe £1,000, maybe £1,100 at the time. Vanden Plas you had to pay up for. It was more like £1,900 or £2,000, so almost doubled the price to look and stand out. And I certainly would think if your neighbour had an Allegro and you turned up in a Vanden Plas 1500, you could certainly stand out and say, oh, I've got a few more extras than you have for sure, but you have to pay for it. The marketing is very strange. It says that look of distinction, and strange phrases throughout this brochure. It says here things like, to begin with, the Vanden Plas 1500 is totally international in concept. It would look equally at home in Rome or Paris or Vienna, yet its distinctive air of good breeding is unmistakably British. Well, the marketing team really have gone to work in this brochure, and that's why I like this brochure, because they've gone to town with it. They basically made an Allegro and tried to get away from it being an Allegro. Like I say, nowhere do you see the word Austin on here, nowhere do you see the word Allegro. Vanden Plas is your badge, you've got something special, and all of a sudden you're in sort of Rolls-Royce territory according to this brochure. Yes, it's a lot of nonsense, but I think it really fits this really quirky car, trying to be something it's not, but everyone can really see it's an Austin Allegro with a big grille on the front. And there we go, the first look of the inside of the Vanden Plas 1500, and first of all the rear of the Vanden Plas 1500. Yeah, it's very much Allegro from that angle, isn't it? The same sort of compromising, it's not a hatchback, it's just a boot, although it is quite a big boot actually once you open it. It's certainly that sort of, why isn't it a hatchback? Well, there are reasons why it's not a hatchback, but even so, it certainly is compromised for not being a hatchback, that's for sure. And that sort of almost bloated, compromised design is ever present in the Vanden Plas 1500, as it is in the Austin Allegro. And that's not to say I don't like the Austin Allegro. I made a few videos on Austin Allegros. And the thing with the Austin Allegro, it's there with the Marina, isn't it? It's always been criticised. They rust, they're weird, they've got square steering wheels, worst cars ever built. That's all just absolute nonsense. For one, as you can see plainly, we've got a round steering wheel, as many Allegros did. And did they rust? No, they didn't rust. In fact, for the 1970s, this was probably one of the better cars for not rusting out there. They weren't a bad car, and they got an unfair reputation when they really didn't deserve it, as did many British motors at the time, which were a lot better than what you thought they were. But anyway, let's not concentrate too much on the Austin Allegro. Let's concentrate it as being the Vanden Plas. Beautiful interior. I don't think anyone can say otherwise. For a small car, it's hard to beat that interior for sure. That walnut dashboard looks really beautiful. Continues along the doors, and those seats are really top quality luxury. Vanden Plas really did a good job of making this into a luxury vehicle, and you can see those sort of walnut picnic tables as well. The brochure here is saying the interior of the Vanden Plas 1500 is a triumph of good design, and naturally it's totally luxurious. You'll find deep pile wall-to-wall carpets underfoot, there to provide extra soundproofing, as much for its sumptuous good looks. Those fully reclining front seats are fully adjustable fore and aft, and all the seats are upholstered in knit-backed expanded vinyl with fluted hide panels for the wearing surfaces. And of course, there's dual armrests for everyone. It then goes on to talk about that hydro gas suspension. It wasn't a bad idea. It made for a very comfortable car, and I guess it works well for a luxurious car as well. Yes, it wasn't to Citroën standards by any degree, but certainly when it was new, it wasn't a bad system really. It then talks about the 1500cc engine. Yeah, the Vanden Plas 1500, it's talking, that's 1500 because it's a 1500, 1485cc to be exact. The 1750 wasn't used at the time, although it did come on later on to the Vanden Plas if you wanted the larger engine, which I can understand why you would do so. It then goes on to talk about a little bit about safety. But we'll open the brochure up because this does open up to really show the interior in more detail. And there it opens up, like I say, to show these seats, and they look like really good seats. No headrest. I think the headrest was actually an optional extra on this particular model. and I guess it's before the days of when we considered headrests as being a really good safety feature. But nevertheless, beautiful leather, really nice armrests on the door as well as in the centre. Maybe looking at this picture, you're just a little bit more tempted to pay that much more. I'm sure in the showroom you sat in your Allegro, you came over to the Vanden Plas 1500, sat in there, and perhaps you was a little bit more sold now you've got inside of it. And them seats look really, really nice as well. Vanden Plas was good at this. This is what Vanden Plas did well. And now we're coming to the end pages, the specifications page on the right. More interestingly on the left though, it gives a lot more images of the interior. It shows these nice picnic tables at the back now as well. It goes on to say, naturally enough, the Vanden Plas 1500 is not lacking in those important extras and options. For instance, you can choose before a highly responsive 5-speed all Synchromesh gearbox. I think that's amazing, you having a Synchromesh 5-speed gearbox in 76 as this brochure is. That would certainly help. And of course, motorway or road speeds generally are increasing, so there's more need for that higher speed rather than having that very revvy engine everywhere you go. So that's a nice feature. Although I think more of this Vanden Plas, maybe you should have opted for that silky smooth automatic transmission, which kind of like fits with that sort of luxury air it's trying to portray. It goes on to say, and those surprisingly useful rear seat picnic tables are not extra. They're part of the whole value for money Vanden Plas 1500 package. It certainly was a nice feature to have those little picnic tables in the back. On the right hand side, it goes on about the specifications. Also the dimensions of the car as well, and at the bottom there it talks about what optional extras you can actually get. Most things are a standard in that Vanden Plas package, as it says, but you can get the optional extras of that auto transmission. The metallic paint is extra. You can opt for a radio with twin speakers, and those headrests are indeed optional extras. So there you go, the Vanden Plas 1500. A quick look at the back page there. Nice view of those sort of Vanden Plas chrome wheel trims on this particular example. Really quite fitting. Yes, it was trying to be something it wasn't. It was, I won't say makeup on a pig, that would be most unfair, but it certainly was trying to be something it wasn't. And it was criticised for that for sure, but I do like it. I mean, you can't help but like that Vanden Plas interior. It was really very beautiful, even though the exterior wasn't quite. Let's just leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching Quarter Light today. There will be more car brochures coming up very soon in the near future, so do subscribe so you don't miss any. But for now, we'll say goodbye and take care.